right, so welcome to part one of our two-part series on fleet electrification, where we'll discuss electric vehicles that will be either in service soon, that are on the road now, or will be coming very, very soon and are in pilot projects. So we're very excited to bring this wonderful panel for you here today. All right, let's close out this poll. Fantastic. All right, so first, before we get started, we want to thank all of our Clean Cities partners from Denver, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Triangle Clean Cities, Central Carolina, Utah, and Central Kansas. We all appreciate you very much for helping us to get the word out about this fantastic webinar. All right, but before we get started and introduce you to our moderator and our panelists, I want to take a few minutes to talk about the Clean Cities program. And I want to go ahead and apologize. If you've been attending every one of our webinars for our Webinar Wednesday series, you've heard this and you're going to hear it again. But since transportation is such a critical aspect of our nation's energy consumption, the Department of Energy has offices that focus on how transportation relates to the DOE priorities of national security, economic growth, affordability for businesses and consumers, and reliability. The DOE's Vehicle Technology Office develops advanced transportation technologies that fit within the department's main priorities to improve energy efficiency, increase domestic energy security, reduce operating costs for consumers and businesses, and to improve global competitiveness of the U.S. economy. The VTO team includes 5 sub-programs shown here. Most of their efforts are focused on early stage R&D, and our program, the Clean Cities program, resides within the Technology Integration Division. Each coalition operates independently, but we are all focused in these 4 key areas: advanced vehicle technologies, new mobility choices, idle reduction and fuel economy improvements, and alternative and renewable fuels and infrastructure. Clean Cities coalitions are all fuel neutral and technology neutral. So you know that when you work with us, you're not going to be getting someone who is going to be pushing one particular technology on you. We don't profit from any choices that you make. We are here to serve you. And we will work with you to find out what your specific needs are and to help you have the best results. We are a part of a national coalition, so there are almost 100 of us all over the country. And if there is not a Clean Cities coalition in your area where you live, just call one that is close by and you'll find that we're all very helpful and happy to work with you. And if we can't help you resolve your issues or your challenges, then we can find someone who can. So at Louisiana Clean Fuels, we were founded back in 1997 and received designation as a Clean Cities Coalition in the year 2000. So we are now celebrating our 20th anniversary as a Clean Cities Coalition. We service about 57 parishes, so we cover everything in Louisiana except for the New Orleans metro area, which is covered by the Southeast Louisiana Clean Fuel Partnership. And we just received some exciting news that contracts and everything are signed on our grant project, Drive EVs in the USA. Many of the Clean Cities coalitions that are part of this grant team helped us to promote this webinar today. And you will all be learning a whole lot more in the near future when we all pull together, and we will have probably a webinar announcing the program and all the projects we'll be working on. So this is a 14-state electric vehicle outreach program that in Louisiana, we will have a Drive Electric Louisiana program and website launching soon. So we're super excited about that. Just wanted to give you a little teaser. And today, we will be talking about electric vehicles, electric work trucks in specific. But if you're interested in any other kind of alternative fuel vehicle, be sure to check out the Alternative Fuel Data Center. We have every single type of vehicle from light duty to trash trucks to 18-wheelers, and all different alternative fuels as well. So you can search by fuel type, you can search by vehicle type, and if it is on the market being sold by a dealer or is available at an OEM right now for sale, we will find it here. This will not include vehicles in pilot or conversions. But if you want to know what's on the market right now, this is a great resource for you. All right, so that brings us to our presentation. And today we have a moderator, Michael Coates. He is the editor and publisher of the Clean Fleets Report. And he is going to take you through an overview of some available electric vehicles. And then our panelists will get to talk about their programs and their products. And then Michael will take you through a moderated Q&A at the end. So we'll have plenty of time to get your questions in. Make sure you type them into the Q&A box, not into the chat, so that we can get to them at the end of the presentation. So take it away, Michael.
Hey, thank you, Ann, and thank you, Louisiana Clean Cities. Folks, I hope you're having a great afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. As Ann said, my name is Michael Coates. I have an online publication, Clean Fleet Report. Also, I'm the automotive editor of Innovation and Tech Today magazine, and I also consult in the auto industry, primarily on government relations matters. We're going to take a quick ride through some of the new electric truck technology that's coming onto the market. I and my colleagues here, Alex, Keith, and Kurt, will present some specific info and answer a few questions that we hope will help you to navigate through this new territory. I'll warn you up front, my section's got a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to blast through pretty quickly, and you all get a copy of the deck afterwards, so you can spend some more time looking at it. And I believe Ann said it'll even include some bonus slides with more information. And of course, I'll be glad to answer any questions after the session as well. You can get in touch with me through Ann. So let's buckle in, let's go. There's an awful lot happening. Next slide, please. First, let's start with an overview of what's happening in the EV market. It's brimming with activity, and some of the vehicles are turning from being announcements into reality. They're not toys. Well, some of them seem like they're toys, but they're really not. They're too expensive to be called toys, and the jobs that they're doing are too important. The light duty market up to this point has mainly consisted of some converters and upfitters, both of which have been growing, and the vehicles that are being created are getting more sophisticated all the time. But they're also about to be joined by an array of both mainstream automakers like Ford and GM, as well as the startups that are pretty serious like Tesla, Rivian, Lordstown, Nikola, and many more. The medium and heavy duty market is similar. Up to this point, most of the EVs on the market have been hand-built, essentially prototypes that are pointing the way to what a big EV could do. Now you have the big boys jumping in, like our colleagues here from Daimler and Volvo, and you'll hear from them in a moment. The new guys also seem to be springing up almost daily. So one of the reasons for that is that you have some huge customers that are willing to spend a lot of money, and that money is attracting a lot of attention. Next slide, please. So let's dive a little deeper. Many of you have had experience with the different alt-fuel conversions of pickups. Most of the electric trucks up to this point have been variations on that. Next year, we'll start to see a whole new breed of electric trucks that are designed from the ground up to be EVs. Rivian is a great example. It's a very well-funded startup, and their truck is due out next year. Ford is going to have an electric version of the best-selling pickup in the country. And GM is reviving the Hummer brand as an all-electric brand. Following year, we'll see that wild Tesla Cybertruck, the workhorse EV pickup, and possibly a GM-built Nikola Badger. The timing, of course, though, is always subject to change. Next slide. As an aside, we'll address more of this as we go along. The rule of thumb on EV announcements is ignore them, to put it simply. Excuse me, maybe take a note of them for future reference. But a lot of the public announcements are not necessarily of trucks that you can buy either now or in the near future. When a truck's actually produced in volume is when you'll find out more of the important details, things like prices, ranges, features, power, and the actual availability of the vehicle. One of the dirty little secrets of the electric vehicle industry is that they're not always available, as in they're not always sold and serviced everywhere in the country. And that's a critical thing for you guys to, when you're thinking of adapting to a new technology, to make sure that you got the support down the road. Medium-duty trucks and vans are already starting to appear in trials, like this e-Sprinter here. Because of some aggressive European regulations, a lot of them are appearing overseas first. This Mercedes e-Sprinter could be brought over relatively quickly, but I suspect Alex might be able to elaborate a little more later on what relatively quickly might mean, because that's not a term that most automakers will use. Big companies like Amazon, UPS, Ryder, and Walmart are driving a lot of the development in the medium-duty market. And it's very exciting because it's happening very quickly. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all these vehicles will reach a broader market. I've driven a few of the models that are out there already, and they're good, they work, but you need to see how they're going to fit with your duty cycle and the business case that you're trying to meet. Next slide. School bus market is fairly small, but it's very visible and it's got a lot of emotion tied to it. A smaller company has led the way here, like this Lion electric bus coming out of Canada, and they've proven themselves that they can actually work in the real world. And now they're being joined by some of the bigger companies. Thomas, which is part of Daimler, Bluebird, and Navistar have all got school bus models that are either out there or will be out there soon. And a lot of these, unlike some of the pickups we just looked at, a lot of these are trucks that can be ordered and put into service right now. Next slide. Transit buses are a market that's also moving really fast. California has got regulations that are already mandating that bus companies switch to electric buses during the next 20 years. It's going to be a gradual process, but it's already started. There's a growing number of electric buses out there. Proterra and BYD are two companies in California building buses right now. And they've been joined by some of the more traditional companies, Gillig, New Flyer, and Nova Bus, which is part of Volvo, that are also offering electric buses. And some of those regular, more traditional companies may give you more continuity because you may already have some of their other propulsion buses in your fleet. So that might make for a easier transition. In the bus sector, fuel cell electrics are also out there along with battery electric buses. And most of those you can get all over the country. One of the things you might want to do if you're interested in the bus market is also get in touch with some of the bus transit companies that have already switched and have already put some of these buses in service. Because that way you can get some real on-the-ground information about how they're working, what duty cycles work for them. And as I'm sure you all know, ordering up a new bus, particularly a new electric bus, is not the same as just ordering up a new diesel bus. If you've switched from diesel to CNG, you know that it's a much larger process. Next slide. The shuttle bus business is another little sub-segment in there. It's attracted a lot of interest from converters, and we've also got some folks now building dedicated vehicles for the market. The key here again is matching duty cycle of the business to the vehicle itself, and then building up a supporting infrastructure. One of the first questions you should ask if you're looking at a conversion is how the warranty is affected and who's honoring the warranty. The second question to ask is for a list of customers you can check on how the vehicles are performing in the real world. Next slide. Here's a segment that I don't think anyone was looking at more than a few years ago in terms of electrification, and that's the refuse market. You would think that the stop and go driving, the short routes, would make for a great electric application. And we've got BYD, Mack, which is part of Volvo, and Lion, all with trucks out in the field right now, seeing what works. Nikola even supposedly got an order for 2,500 fuel cell refuse trucks from Republic, which is one of the largest companies in the industry, but that truck hasn't even been designed yet. Next slide. Okay, now we're in an area like refuse that a few years ago you would have never thought of mentioning electric vehicles in the same breath as a Class 8 electric truck. But that was then and this is now. These trucks come in two basic types. You've got tractors like the BYD model shown here that are designed to haul trailers with up to 80,000 pounds of freight. Then you also have straight trucks, which are used for local deliveries. Most of the trucks out there right now are in demonstration projects. And again, they're basically proving what these trucks can do. But the big guys, like our friends here at Daimler and Volvo, are already starting to take orders and planning to deliver trucks. So you'll be able to quiz these guys in a few minutes. Next slide. So there are also those who think that electric trucks are going to work in the long haul business. That appears to be a little bit further down the road, but you've got some major players, new guys like Tesla and Nikola with battery electric and fuel cell trucks that are still in the early stages. They haven't even gotten any into actual commercial service yet, or I would say anywhere close to production. But hang on, you'll be hearing more from them in the coming years. Next slide. Finally, there's the whole off-road segment. Again, we'll hear from Kurt with a little more on Orange EV. But in the same way that electric drive's being applied to the over-the-road trucks, the off-road applications, particularly some that have got a duty cycle that fits well with electric drive, are already finding a lot of vehicles in service, and it's attracting a lot more attention. Again, you got the players like Kalmar and BYD are joining Orange EV in this field. Next slide. So I've teased you some pretty pictures and tales of trucks running around in California. So the first question is, what can you really buy? It's an excellent question, and I'll give you one site that can be helpful in sorting out the difference between the headlines that you're reading and the actual hardware on the ground. California has an incentive program, which just as a sidelight is currently oversubscribed. So you have to be careful what you're wishing for there. That's designed to promote on-road electric vehicles. Name of the site is HVIP. And the reason I'm suggesting that you take a look at it is it's got a feature in the drop-down menu there called eligible vehicles. Those are vehicles that have been vetted by the state and are functional, available for sale EVs. Ann also mentioned the ADFC site, which has also got a list of currently available vehicles. So you want to make sure that you don't get out too far ahead of things. And if you're trying to put a vehicle into service soon, you need to make sure it's actually out there. Next slide. There's a parallel site for off-road vehicles called CORE. Again, it's a California program, but I'm just suggesting that it's very usable to find out what kind of products are out there and actually available. Again, this one's a little more focused on the freight sector, so it's not as comprehensive as the HVIP program, but it's a good one to keep out. Next slide. So this is my last slide. It's a little bit of a teaser because we've been talking about electric trucks and other future products, but EVs are also showing up with a lot of other technology. Autonomous technology is just one of the technologies that you should be keeping on your radar, figuring out if it's going to work with your duty cycles and the applications that you've got. Some of these autonomous shuttles are already out there working in defined areas like campuses, and they appear to be working quite well. So you can expect a lot more. So that is all I got. So back to you, Ann. You're muted, Ann.
I just went to town talking. I'm sorry. All right, so we just have a quick poll for you before we get started. We just want to know what kind of electric vehicle experience you have, and then we will get you started with our first speaker. All right, so actually next up is going to be Alexander Voets. He is the Sales and Marketing Manager of e-mobility for Daimler Trucks North America. So this poll, we can continue to have this poll going on while we queue up Alexander to get started. So I have a few more seconds before I end this poll.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Ann. Yeah, that was certainly a good overview and introduction here to our discussion. Again, my name is Alex Voets. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for Freightliner's e-mobility. Freightliner is a part of Daimler Trucks North America. And I can certainly talk about this topic for hours, but I'll try to limit myself for 10 minutes and then get into the discussion here. If we go to the next slide, just to start off, really want to explain on a high level what the difference is between a conventional truck and an electric truck. So on the left side here, you see our traditional powertrain on a diesel truck. So we would have an engine in the front, a transmission mounted to it, after treatment system. We have diesel tanks and DEF tanks, and then the driveline, and then the axles. So everything you see highlighted in blue here on the left side. If we think an electric powertrain on the right side here, really the batteries is the main component. We have the batteries mounted under the frame rail. It gives it a nice low center of gravity, very nice ride comfort. And the energy from there really goes to the inverters to the e-axles in the back. And we can talk about this in a little bit more detail, but there's a couple of different ways how the electric drivetrain can be engineered. We went with an e-axle design, which means that the e-motor is mounted directly on the axles in the back. That really takes advantage of the electric powertrain because we eliminate a lot of the moving parts, and we have a lot of freedom when it comes to packaging. We have the electric auxiliary still in the front, so what we call the front box assembly. Everything that traditionally was driven off the crankshaft is now electrified in some way or shape. And Michael already talked about the some of the newer players with conversions and also the ability to have service and continuity. So sometimes I'm asked, why the truck really looks like a truck still and not like a spaceship. And the reason is really what Michael described. There is going to be a period of transition from diesel to electric, and there will be a mixed fleet for quite some time. You might have drivers that go back and forth between diesel trucks and electric trucks. So making that transition easy is really part of the reason to still go with a design that resembles a truck. and being able to talk to the same people that you talk to today when it comes to servicing your vehicles, and maybe you already have technicians in your own company that work on some of these brakes or other things on the truck. So it's going to be an easier transition for you here with that setup. If we jump to the next slide, we talked about already the importance of pilot projects. We have a number of pilot projects actually ongoing right now. And the purpose is really to learn, to understand, to have customers go through this process, for us to go through this process of electrification, and having that firsthand experience and having miles on the road is really the most important thing there. So one of the pilot projects that we currently have on the road is what we call the Freightliner Electric Innovation Fleet. That is a fleet of 30 fully battery electric trucks, 20 e-Cascadias and 10 EM2. So in case you don't know, the Cascadia is our class leading long haul, or over the road, I should say, on highway truck. It's a class 8 truck. The electrified version is what we call the e-Cascadia, and you see on the right side here, that was actually the first delivery of those 2 e-Cascadias back in August of last year. Meanwhile, we have 20 of these running every day, and then we also have 10 of our medium duty product, the EM2, running with customers. And we always say real customers, real routes, real freight. So it's really important for us to put these trucks to the test and actively learn and actively shape our series product. So collaboration and learning is definitely at the forefront here. If we go to the next slide, we actually decided not too long ago to expand our reach with the pilot projects, and we put an additional pilot project in place, which is our Freightliner Customer Experience Fleet. And like the name suggests, it's really for our customers to try the trucks in their operation with their drivers at their locations with their freight, to really get that hands-on experience. That's another 8 fully battery electric trucks, 6 e-Cascadias, 2 EM2s, and they cycle through a number of customers over time. You see in the pictures here on the top, a JB Hunt truck, and on the bottom, a truck that is currently operated by Ryder. So certainly very exciting to get that firsthand experience, to get that feedback, and to really work on our series product to make it ready for prime time. If we go to the next slide, just a couple of learnings and driver feedback right out of the gate. So on the left side, you see obviously the vehicles. In the center, you see a lot of the work that we went through with infrastructure installation. Infrastructure is actually oftentimes the first thing you need to think about, and talking to your utility companies and also your Clean City Coalition representative is oftentimes the first step, even though the truck might be your end goal. But infrastructure is a very important process to think through. And you see on the top here, an impression from our headquarters here in Portland. Actually, we put a lot of these chargers in place. We work with almost all of the EVSE providers, so the charging equipment providers. We test our trucks with all of those to make sure that they work with every charger that is available. On the bottom, you also see some of the projects that we've done with consulting our customers through that charging infrastructure process. There's a lot of options on your trucks, but there's also a lot of options on your infrastructure. If you do it right, there is a lot of savings opportunities. So certainly engage your Freightliner dealer. They get in contact with us and we can help you through some of these considerations. Some of the learnings that we got, first of all, straight from the driver. Of course, they realize these things are super quiet. They don't need to crank up their radio to drown out the engine noise. They don't smell like diesel at the end of the day. There's also a sense of pride because they drive these trucks down the road, and others will ask them about, is this truck really battery electric? And of course they say yes. So there's really that sense of pride to drive the future here. The regenerative braking on the trucks, we have regenerative braking, works similarly to your traditional engine brake, but of course, in this case with battery electric, you recuperate energy back into the batteries and can extend your range, which is really nice because a lot of drivers will actually make a game out of it, who gets the most range out of these vehicles. So it's definitely what the fleet operator wants, but it's also in this case makes a fun game for the drivers. It's also very stable. There's not a lot of roll in those trucks because there's nothing vibrating, less fatigue at the end of the day, easier pre and post inspections, and like I already mentioned, the low center of gravity really gives it a nice ride comfort. If we go to the next slide, you see that I already talked about the truck is one piece of the puzzle here, and Anne and Michael already alluded to some of the considerations that you need to be aware of. Going around the circle here, the customer use case, really it's not for every use case yet. It's important to understand where you operate, how heavy you operate, what routes you usually go on. So like Michael just explained, those drayage, regional food and beverage or pickup and delivery type of applications are really the prime use cases where electric trucks already work today. We certainly have a group within Freightliner that can help you determine these and make the calculations, but it's important to put these trucks to the right use case. Regulations and incentives as well. It's important to understand what regulations are in your area. We see more and more stringent regulations. California seems to be on the forefront there, but we saw other states also sign on to more and more cleaner transportation, and battery electric trucks will certainly play an important role there. Incentives are available in wide parts of the country, US and Canada. And taking advantage of these incentives is important. There's incentives on the truck, there's incentives on the infrastructure, and there's also incentive when it comes to operating those trucks to eventually lower your TCO. We already talked about charging infrastructure, and it can be a little bit daunting to go through that process. Like I said, we'll help you through this to make sure that you have the right decision all throughout the entire process, not only the truck, but also the right charging infrastructure. And then lastly, service and dealer rollout. You want to be sure that when you have these vehicles in your fleet that you know where to go if you have questions. And in our case, you'll go to the same dealerships, to the same people that you go to for your diesel vehicles as well. If we go to the next the next slide, here's just a little bit of an impression when you think about charging infrastructure, some of the things that you need to be aware of. So you see on the top right, that's your grid connection. So your utility company is going to be a partner for you here pretty early on. They tend to be responsible for everything on their side of the meter. Everything that's down below is essentially your side of the meter. So the meter and downstream is all your responsibility. And there's usually work. You can put stationary storage in. I already saw a question about considerations of blackouts or power outages. So a resilient grid is one answer to that. Of course, that comes at a price. And you see an example here how you can set up your charge park. In this case, it's kind of nose in and tail in. We recommend, if you have the space, to have pull-through bays so you don't have to hook and unhook your trailer. But there is a lot of considerations also when it comes to the space that you have, when it comes to the days or hours a day that you operate. So there's a lot of optimization opportunity that we can help you through as well. If we go to the next slide, and that'll be my last slide, just as already mentioned, currently we are in the phase of a pilot project, or two indeed, with almost 40 trucks on the road. Those pilot projects are very, very important, and very important for the learnings and the feedback to get everything right. But of course, what we're all waiting for is a serious production. And like Michael already pointed out, I also urge people to not only look at the headlines, but really see what the volume production at scale is. Our trucks will come in 2022, and they will come out of our established truck manufacturing plant here in Portland. We'll have two general versions, the medium duty truck, the EM2, that's a class 6-7 truck. up to 315 kilowatt hour battery capacity with a target range of 230 miles that will cover a lot of these pickup and delivery type of applications. And then the eCascadia as a day cab on the bottom is the other version that will have a couple of different configurations, and that will be a full Class 8 tractor. And I'll leave it there. The next slide is just my thank you slide, and I'm looking forward to the questions later. Thank you very much.
Sorry, it took a little second there for me to unmute. All right, thank you so much, Alexander. We'll have some Q&A at the end, so if you have questions about his vehicles and such, please put them in the Q&A. Next up, we have Keith Brandis. He is the Vice President of Partnerships and Strategic Solutions for the Volvo Group. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you, Ann, and thank you, Michael, for being the moderator of this session. It's exciting to be here with the Clean Cities Coalition. I'm learning a lot about your mission, and I'm very excited about how we can see the network rolling out and then connecting us with the future market opportunities. We've been on this journey for a number of years now. It started with city buses in Europe. We began to add hybrid, and we began to add plug-in hybridization before we went to full battery electric. And then we stepped into medium duty. And in each technology step, we learned that there's lots that have to be changed in order to accommodate the duty cycle for heavy duty trucks. And I'm here to talk about Volvo heavy duty trucks. I'm sorry I can't help you with Volvo cars. Next slide, please. So we also have a pilot project called Volvo Lights, which stands for Low Impact Green Heavy Transport Solutions. This is our largest public-private partnership. When you total the investments at over $90 million, we received an award from California Air Resource Board for roughly half to South Coast Air Quality Management District to be the overseer of it. And Volvo functions as a prime contractor. We have 15 partners that we oversee in order to deliver the dramatic and aggressive objectives, which are reduce greenhouse gas, of course, improve air quality, provide sustainable freight movement, and look at a holistic approach to near zero emission vehicles. If you go to the next slide then. So in the LA Basin, which some of you I saw on the list may represent today, being the second largest population center in the US, also suffers from, of course, air quality concerns. And we have tremendous movement of freight through the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach to the Inland Empire, where we have miles and miles of rooftops of warehouses. So we looked at all of the movement in this area, including how trucks are operating in disadvantaged communities, those darker areas where there's too much idling, there's too much stop and go, and the worst quality impacts, air quality impacts. So we have already begun delivering 23 battery electric heavy duty trucks. We've purchased and installed 29 battery electric equipment, such as electric forklifts, electric yard tractors. We will have a total of 58 public and private chargers. We have our dealer tech equipment in 2 locations, out in Fontana and then another one in La Mirada. Nearby where the customers are located, our 2 customers, DHE and NFI. And we're working with 2 community colleges, Rio Hondo and San Bernardino, to train the technicians of the future. They already have existing light duty technician training, and we've sent them hundreds of thousands of dollars of parts and providing them materials so they can train to work on heavy duty trucks. Our customers are installing solar on their rooftop, 1.8 million watts, and the ports are participating in evaluating what types of steps they're going to need to take in order to prepare for electric trucks in their future. Next slide, Ann. This is already happening, and part of it is to prepare for production starting at the end of this year. So the trucks are not just garage queens. They're not just one-offs. These are in fact built on the assembly line and put together using the types of quality controls and processes to refine and train our production processes. We will focus first on those high populated, very dense traffic areas where trucks go out and back. These are what we might refer to as short haul. And as we gain confidence in the range and the performance of the trucks, they will be expanded into regional haul. If I can share with you some of our early lessons. Well, as we said, we're installing these charging infrastructure. Most of it is behind the fence at our customer location. It is taking many months and is very intensive in order to put in place a significant investment. These chargers and the utility upgrade are very important for us to be able to recharge the truck within a several-hour overnight period. Many of you in the states and municipalities have a role to play, and that is your engineering department, your buildings and permitting department, as well as your first responders and public safeties have to be encouraging and be easy to do business with. I know this is new. I know you don't have zoning and everything else in place permitting this, but let's work together to see how we can overcome this. And we're also finding that the electric utility companies will need to add larger transformers, maybe substations, higher lines to many of these facilities, because now we're going from using liquid fuels to now electricity. It's quite exciting. I hope you'll agree. Next slide, Dan. A couple of years ago, you may have heard a lot of startups and others saying, hey, this is around the corner, this is going to be happening, and then nothing happened. And you may have thought, well, that's all smoke and mirrors. It's not smoke and mirrors today. The future is happening. We are preparing for these trucks. They're coming to your communities, and we're saying this is going to be very much the type of adoption and volume growth that will be very important in the years ahead. And we thank you, Clean Cities, the Coalition, for this opportunity today.
Thank you, Keith. All right, so next up we have something a little bit different. We wanted to give you a good flavor of the different types of electric vehicles available, and there is a type of vehicle that is ready and working and has been working for years, and these are our yard trucks. So Kurt Neutgens with Orange EV is next up, and he is going to tell you about these very real and available vehicles that you can get right now. Take it away, Kurt.
Thank you very much, Ann, and really appreciate the time and what Louisiana Clean Fuels has done along with their greater group, which we're a part of. And also, Michael, thank you very much for your time and introduction. Let me talk about Orange EV. I'm Kurt Neutgens. I am one of the founders. We build terminal trucks. That's otherwise known as yard dogs, switchers, spotters, goats. And our customers say our 100% electric product is safer, more reliable, and lower cost than the diesels. And I'll take you through some specifics, quotes and press releases from customers who have said that over the last 5+ years now that we've had our products at customer sites in production. We've been proven and preferred by the companies we work with. Next slide, please. So this is a terminal truck. It moves a semi-trailer around a shipping yard or distribution area. It has a hydraulic fifth wheel on it, so it can lift that whole trailer up without going out and cranking up the feet. They're also known as spotters and yard dogs and all kinds of other names that I have too many to mention here. It is a Class 8 truck. We can pull 81,000 pounds. However, this truck is a 25-mile-an-hour or less truck. And that's true of the diesels, just like our truck is. And we are DOT compliant. We have both on-road and off-road versions. So that is available today and has been for years, frankly. And we can run 24/7. Our trucks run all the way from a distribution center all the way into the rail yards. So lots of breadth and capability there. Go ahead and go to the next slide for me, please. So we have both a 4x2 and a 6x2 version of our truck, and that 6x2 version has just been released recently. You can see that one has a galvanized frame on it, and so We're pretty excited about that recent introduction, but the 4x2 has been in production and being delivered since 2015. Our trucks can run up to 24 hours on a single charge, but we encourage opportunity charging. We have a lower total cost of ownership for our customers, and most of the time our customers can pay back in less than 3 years. And what's really nice about the regen braking on the accelerator pedal is our panic stop is about 50% of a standard truck. So it's much safer in that stopping distance. In addition, I'll mention we have telematics on the trucks, getting real-time data for both us and our customers. So you can look up your truck, see when it's turned on, see when it turned off, how far it went, how many hours it was used, how many lifts it had, all that stuff. Go ahead, next slide, please. Here's some of the pictures of the different customers that we have, and just a small number versus our total fleet. We do try and create a truck for, custom built for our customers. We have different battery versions so that customers who have an 8-hour shift can buy a truck that matches their needs at the price that matches their costs. And then a 24/7 operation can get a truck with a 160 kilowatt hour pack and the faster charging capability. And that allows them to run 24/7, only turning or plugging the truck in while the operator's on break. So running 24/7 without any extra time to charge the truck. One of the neat things about our trucks versus the bigger trucks that we've talked about earlier today is that we don't need a whole lot of special infrastructure. Many of our trucks can, we don't have any actual improvements in the infrastructure other than getting the line within the building to our truck or where they want to plug it in. So it's pretty easy relative to what you've heard so far to get up and running. We do have some really neat options like galvanized frames, custom colors, as you can see here, and then the other benefits that you don't see on the diesel trucks that we thought were important for this market and listen to our customers. Next slide, please. So this is a map on the left of where we already have delivered and we have trucks running. The heavy orange color shows that we are coast to coast. We are in cold weathers in Minnesota, and we've gone through winters in Minnesota. We are on the heat of San Antonio or El Centro in California. We're in the snow of Buffalo, New York for many years. So we've seen it. We've been running our trucks. We have over 570,000 hours of usage on our trucks for our customers. That doesn't include our own testing. That's our customer usage time. And those are real numbers taken off our telematics. Again, over 200 trucks in operations. And one of the neat things is the other discussions earlier about the repair and the maintenance. We felt it was really important to take that up a level. And so we have a factory direct or factory trained fleet of trucks and service technicians that come to you. So they are local to your area. You'll get to know your own technician, and they come to you with parts already on their vans. And if there are any issues or they need maintenance, they're there. It's really a step up from what's been in the industry so far, at least in our industry of yard hostlers. You can see there we've got quite a few big names. There's a bunch that we can't say here publicly, but we're pretty excited about how far we're going and how fast we're growing. So next slide, please. So now I just want to take you through a couple of our customers, and this is just success stories, if you will. These are not, prototypes. These are production trucks. These are fully purchased trucks by these customers, and this is kind of just a quote or two from each one. So let's talk about Kraft Heinz and Firefly. Firefly is the 3PL who's servicing Kraft Heinz, and Firefly has been running our trucks for many years, and this is one of their newer or more recent locations. Go on to the next slide, please. So the quote in their press release from the Kraft Heinz company was, Firefly will operate 3 Orange EV trucks to do the work formerly accomplished by 5 diesels. With this deployment, Kraft Heinz plans to virtually eliminate diesel terminal truck emissions at the Groveport Distribution Center. So this is not a truck our electric truck is not one that's in supplement. We actually, and this is partly because Firefly is great at what they do in 3PL, but we are actually reducing the number of trucks there, and it's only electric trucks on that site. So this is not a toy, as discussed earlier. These trucks are doing the job. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is Ability Trimodal, supporting the port in California. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And their quote was, for the past 12 years or more, we've had 2 or 3 diesels down at any one time. We needed a solution. Until Orange EV, no one had answers. They love our trucks, and we're pretty proud of that. Let's go on to the next slide. OMSS is in the port of Oakland, or just outside. Really, you would call them in the port, but city property. And so they've bought one, and then the second truck from us. Go ahead. To the next slide, please. The yard hostler is critical to our operations, so naturally we wanted to go with the industry leader. That's Orange EV. They specialize in electric hostlers, and it shows. And again, let me note the quote is from 2018, and from that first press release, they ran their first truck for a while, and then now their full yard is electric. So they came back and bought more. Dependable services in the California area, Ontario. Let me go on to the next slide. The company has explored several diesel alternatives, including compressed natural gas and hydrogen. The only thing that makes viable sense is electric. And again, that's from 2019, and a great customer of ours. So very happy with the trucks, running every day. Up in New York, Dimension Fabricators running our truck. And this one's, in my mind, a really beautiful truck. I love their color scheme. And they paid a little bit extra for the paint job, but we did the custom colors at the price of the truck. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Happy and safe operators stick with you for the long term. And the guys just love the new Orange EV truck. They can't stop raving about it. And again, back from 2018. So these are, just indicating that we've been out there for a while, and these are not new. This is not a demonstration. This is trucks doing the job that your diesels would do every day, and we're proven and ready. Biggie, if you guys know Biggie at all, they do construction really, and so they've bought a couple of our trucks, and the trucks go off site and they come back at night to get charged. So it's a little bit different operation than normal. Go on to the next slide. We're getting a full 12 hours of work per charge, which keeps our Orange EV trucks running all day long. The trucks are quiet, efficient, and very reliable. One of the things that's really important for them is they're going on a site. They got to get things to happen. They can't have equipment break down, and they found our trucks are much better than the diesels they had in the past. Go ahead to the next slide. And this one I think is kind of we're most proud of. And this is with Bolthouse Farms. They've done a couple of press releases, some webinars like this for the state of California, and they've talked about the terminal tractor they bought from us back in 2017, and they bought a diesel at the exact same time, a brand new diesel. And so they were comparing the two from the get-go, brand new to brand new. What makes sense here? So let's go to the next slide. And this is their quote. They released this, and we didn't even know it was coming, frankly. So the Orange EV electric terminal tractor had a 75% decrease in the downtime over the 2-year period as compared to their diesel counterpart. Remember, it's a brand new diesel. The diesel vehicles needed about 522 hours in the shop, while the electric only needed 134 hours. There was an 80% reduction in maintenance costs compared to the diesel counterpart. The diesel vehicles cost $3.93 per hour to maintain, and the Orange EV electric truck only costs 78 cents an hour to maintain. These are their numbers, not ours. And again, these trucks were built in 2017 and delivered in 2017. We're pretty confident we'll beat these numbers going forward. So and already are with our internal data. So let me just talk then about the TCO. I think the most important part about this is that, you know, it looks like the costs are more expensive. There is a higher upfront cost for our trucks, but the cost of ownership is much less. We see paybacks in less than 3 years without any incentives. And some of our customers can save it as much as $60,000 a year for a truck that's really running 24/7. They can save up to $60,000 a year per truck annually in maintenance and fuel, just hard savings. So, and then there's a lot of great stuff that the team has, or the other presenters already talked about. So we're pretty happy with that payback, and we think that's the key to driving this into the market is your overall costs are less. So that's why you want to go electric. On to the last slide. Oh, I forgot this one, sorry. Just very quick, founded and started in 2012. 2015 was our first delivery and of production trucks. And, you know, in 2020, we are doubling our production almost every year. So lots of excitement from our customers and repeat orders. So let me go on to the next slide. So I'm just going to leave you with that, and just there's a number there. You know, if you have interest or other questions, please contact Sky, who's our National Sales Director, and there's his phone number there and his email, and we'd be happy to work with anybody and help you through any questions. And like the other presenters said, you know, there is a partnership here, and we're all about making sure it works for you, understanding your site, understanding your needs, making sure you don't buy more than you have to. So 80 kilowatt versus 160 kilowatt hour pack, those types of things. But we're very happy to be part of this. And thank you again, Ann, and thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Kurt. Okay, so now we're going to start our Q&A session that Michael will be moderating. So if you have any additional questions or something you would like to ask one of the panelists, please enter it into the Q&A section so we can make sure that we have access to it for the Q&A. So Michael, are you ready?
I am all ready, Ann, and I'm going to kind of let you be the timekeeper. So you just, I think we've got more than enough questions to, between the ones that I have and some of the panelists have even put forward, plus the ones that have been put up here. So I think we've got more than enough questions to keep us going. So you just cut us off when needed.
Sure. We got about 25 minutes because we just maybe have 5 minutes to wrap up afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. And okay, so my panel, I'm gonna ask you individually. I'm gonna ask you a question, each of you a question, and if you can, try and keep your answers obviously as full as you can, but also as short as you can, so we can get through a lot of questions here. Alex, let me start with you. And actually, one of the questions that you suggested, which I think is one that's got to be on everyone's mind, which is what are the first questions that someone should ask when they're thinking about purchasing an electric truck?
Yeah, that is certainly a question that is on everyone's mind. I think the first thing is really the education. Watching this webinar today is already your first step. Make sure you know what's available. Make sure what kind of the prime use cases are. Look at your own operation and maybe start with one location, one depot, one yard, and think through it in an example. Certainly engage your utility company, engage your Clean Cities Coalition representative, and then engage the OEM. You know, if you decide that you want to look into a Freightliner product, go to a local dealership, they'll get you in contact with us to really think through, is it the right use case for you? Are there incentives available? Which are the best trucks to maybe look at replacing first? And then also, what is your 5 to 10 year plan? Because especially when it comes to infrastructure, whenever you dig up concrete, make sure you only do it once. So those are definitely the type of questions that you should ask yourself. And then also, once it's in operation, make sure that you know where that truck will get maintained, where it gets serviced.
So just a quick follow-up to that, how much knowledge does someone have to bring to the utility and to the OEM, do they have to have a full kind of understanding of what their duty cycle is? Is that kind of the critical point, or?
I think you can come with whatever status you have. It's just oftentimes people think about the truck first. So when they come to us, but they don't know some of the prerequisites, they tend to be a little bit disappointed that we send them back with some homework assignment, because it's really just like when you think about buying an electric passenger car. There is some of these questions, is it going to be right for my commute? Where do I charge it? Do I charge it at home? Is there public charging available? What kind of incentives can I get from a state or local agency? So those are the kind of the same things on a truck as well, with the difference that the truck is there to earn you money. So we certainly want to make sure that either together with us and a different OEM or your utility company, you think through these things so that you can ensure that your trucks are out there making money and are not down.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Keith, you mentioned that the Lights program is looking at a holistic system. Could you maybe drill down a little bit to that? I mean, you mentioned solar panels on the roof, you mentioned yard trucks, you mentioned forklifts. Kind of how does it all fit together?
Yes, and maybe this adds to what Alex started in the earlier question about, where do you begin? And in this case, we had a public bid, and we put together a team, and the team went through a lot of questions that has already been asked about, what is the duty cycle? In this case, we actually had telematic data that showed the routes, the miles, and the cycles for these both straight trucks and tractors. And we combined that with the opportunity to use public funding for the series of investments that were needed so that we could put together a business case for everything. So how can solar lower the peak electricity charge on the house side? But also, could we have a microgrid to store power and maybe use that in the off hours? How could we bring in this expensive, charging infrastructure and make that a payback so that we only do it once and we can future-proof it? So if they want to grow their fleet and this is a successful pilot, they can go and add easily additional parking spots and just have additional dispensers because we've already upgraded the electrical system. The switch from internal combustion engines to all electric forklifts and yard switchers, just made sense when you're electrifying a site. And working with the other community stakeholders brought into the fact that this is going to have a much better benefit if both first responders, public safety, and the local municipality understands how they can leverage this and can launch this to more customers, to more warehouses, to more transport in that area.
Great, thanks, Keith. Just a quick follow-up. I know you're fairly early in this program, but are you starting to find a different situation where you would need the DC fast charging and somewhere you would need just the level 2 charging? I mean, is there are you seeing that in your project?
So the daily duty cycle allows for the trucks to return at the end of their workday and work shift. And we have plenty of time overnight for the trucks to fully charge before the next day. We have several different battery pack sizes and capacities based on the range that's needed for that particular operation. So some trucks will take longer to charge, which is why we installed 150 kilowatt outside DC fast chargers.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Kurt, sounds like you probably have more on the ground experience than both of these guys, although obviously there's a lot of experience collectively among the three of you. I was fascinated when you mentioned a 3-year payback with some of your some of your units? Because that sounds like that's right in the sweet spot of what a lot of customers are looking for. Is that, can you give us a little more detail on what that 3-year payback is? Does that rely on government incentives, or is that pretty much just operating costs?
That's operating costs. So, you know, as was stated earlier by some of the other panelists, we do go into each customer site and look at their duty cycle. We work with the customer, and we bring our own people on site and understand, you know, are they running 1 shift? Are they running 2 shifts? Are they running 3 shifts? Are they running weekends? All that kind of stuff. And so we put together the whole package for them as to what's the size of the battery pack, what's the charging rate, all that stuff. We have documented numbers from YRC from their purchases back in 2016, where they ran for 3 years and 3 years plus, and you know, they're still running those trucks. They've bought more, they've got more at that site. But for those first trucks, we looked at the first 3 years, and they had a payback in under 3 years with those trucks, assuming no incentives. So that's just hard savings. That doesn't even include health and safety benefits. It doesn't include emissions reductions. It doesn't include, you know, driver satisfaction or retention. It really is just fuel and maintenance. And with those two differences, or that value, there was an under a 3-year payback. Now they're a stronger site. You know, they run pretty strong. It's not a 1-shift operation. It's really a 2+. They have 2 long shifts. And so that's part of that discussion, but we see that kind of payback from many of our customers. With incentives, we often see that there is no payback because the truck was the same price or less in diesel, and the truck is paid back completely. Even in the YRC case, their trucks will be a free truck at 6 years. So they literally will have not paid anything for their trucks. And by the end of next year, it'll have been a free truck.
That's impressive, Kurt. And the other one I wanted to ask you about was when you referenced that the three of your trucks replaced 5 diesel yard hostlers. Can you? Obviously, there's some efficiencies. So can you explain how that happened?
So as I mentioned, while I said that, a lot of that has to do with Firefly and how good that they are at doing their operations. So we don't suggest that our trucks that there's less needed than a diesel. Now, if you look at the uptime discussions that Bolthouse published from their work, if our downtime is only 20% of the diesel downtime, then you don't need as many trucks. But really, most of that improvement was due to Firefly just being more efficient in what they do as a 3PL than the 3PL who was in before them at that site for Kraft Heinz.
Huh. Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's impressive either way. So it's a good that plus the TCO numbers are very very impressive.
Yeah.
Michael,
our reliability is better.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
we've got about 10 minutes left for some of the audience questions. Do you have access to the audience questions?
Yeah.
Awesome. We do want to mention that there are other companies out there, such as Adamani, that have vehicles and trucks available now. So give a shout out to Doug Lawler if y'all are interested in learning more about them as well. So go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, let me see. I think we addressed some of these here.
As you're reading through them, Michael, I can just answer the one that was for me directly real quick.
Sure.
But we do have, it's not a refrigeration, well, it's an air conditioning unit on top of our truck that we give us an option, and it's tied right into our power system. It really doesn't take that much energy. It's all self-contained, and all we run to it is electric, and it's just a AC unit on the roof of the cab. So that's what that is. So let me let you go on to the next question.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, Alex, it looks like you got one you wanted to answer about the increased charging speeds for DC fast charging.
Sure, yeah, I can certainly speak to this. So part of the reason why we think about use case by use case or duty cycle by duty cycle for these electrics is twofold. One is the size and the weight of the battery, and the other one is the time that it takes for charging. So once both of these things are addressed, the use cases will expand above these hub and spoke type of applications. So on the battery technology, on the one hand, of course, we expect that the energy density, so the kilowatt hour per pound, is going to come down over time. And then the other part with the charging speed, we already talked about that depending on the charge equipment that you buy, charging can take an hour and a half or multiple hours overnight. But really the comparison that people look at is the diesel, and a diesel truck might take 20 minutes or so to fuel. So that's essentially the goal that we're working towards. So as was mentioned here, 1 megawatt, 4 megawatts and more. There is an initiative that Daimler leads that's called the CharIN initiative. And that is really a conglomerate of multiple OEMs globally to address that topic of standardized and what's called megawatt charging. So that will allow us to get into that area of having very, very short charging times, which will then also allow for public charging infrastructure that is accessible for everybody. And that's when we then get into these areas of, going from hub to hub, similar to a diesel truck today.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Alex. And we got time for one more?
Oh yeah, we have time. So
Okay.
Keith, do you have anything to add to that question about the DC fast charging and limits? Are we good to
I
move
think
on?
Alexander was right on that. As an industry, we're looking at where we can develop standards, and especially maybe bring this closer to faster recharge times. I think it's some years into the future because it generates tremendous amount of heat. And we know that if you have, a large number of trucks at a charging location, you would need a small substation. So there's lots that we can do in the meantime to take from 150 to 250 and maybe 350 using liquid cooled cables. And I think that's going to hold us off for a number of years to come.
Thank you.
Keith, actually kind of related to that, there's a question about, and because I know you've dealt with this through your project, what are some of the services utilities can provide for the new EV truck customer?
Utilities, of course, are heavily regulated. They differ quite a bit, by geographic area and what the state allows them to serve. I think about some of our customers to say, we travel beyond your borders and we need common pricing. We need an account approach, and we need the ability to work with multiple utilities on a much larger scale. So I think those are some of the helpful things that we're looking for.
Sounds good. I'll go back to your earlier comment about putting together a team to address these issues. I think that's, to me, that's one of the things it kind of takes, I think it takes both sides kind of out of their comfort zone in a sense, because it's not the normal vehicle transaction. You're talking about a much broader kind of a transaction here, where you've got a lot more people with different interests involved. So I would say that's a big takeaway for this. See any other ones, Anne? I think.
Yeah, so here's a question. It says, some employees take their assigned fleet vehicles home, like linemen, police, tow trucks when on call. Have any of you considered how these employees would charge their fleet vehicles at home and be reimbursed for the energy to do so?
Probably either.
I can take that.
Kurt?
I could take that one on if you'd like. With the telematic systems that we have on our trucks, we can tell how much energy is used and at what location it's being charged. So now in our case, that's at our customer sites, because we have yard hostlers that are always at the site. But that same technology could easily be used on the vehicles to set up a system. Now, as stated earlier, that means you got to create that network. But I think that's pretty doable. I'm not sure if the need is big enough to have that investment, or the number of people looking for that is big enough to have that investment, but that's definitely possible.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay,
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, ooh.
Yeah, I think the question goes more to the lighter duty vehicles in a lot of ways, but most of the heavy duty ones are designed on our return to base kind of system, I think. Any others? I think we've. I'll read this one and let anybody who wants to take a shot at it. It's because I'm not even sure I quite understand it. Has any movement for EV units to become modular with their batteries? This would eliminate the marriage between the end user and the manufacturer. It would add some comfort to the end users, knowing what options are there if a battery failure was an issue. Alex, you said you could address that. So
yeah, I think I understand the question, and that question comes semi-regularly, to have the electric vehicle and the battery potentially be bought separately or swapped out later. The battery as essentially a commodity. And I can tell you, and I doubt that any other panelist has a different opinion there, we take safety very, very seriously as our top priority. Batteries are multiple hundreds of volt system. We work a lot and test a lot to make sure that every possible scenario is being looked at, and we have a lot of processes in place to commission, decommission, and ensure that whatever happens in whatever event is safe, which includes crash testing of our vehicles, which includes auto shut off of the connectors. So we're really, really hesitant for any third party or aftermarket type of retrofits or swapping out a battery. So for us right now, we don't plan to have a customer buy a battery from somewhere else. We certainly have warranty on our batteries. We have our service network ready to attend to these vehicles if there should be any type of failure on it, but we're definitely not in the camp of having third-party batteries brought into our vehicles. There is, the market is still pretty new and fresh, so there is not a lot of regulations towards OEMs, which is why we follow a lot of self-inflicted regulations. As an example, we merge our batteries completely underwater and do a lot of safety testing, but we're not in the camp of letting other companies work on our system and our batteries for those reasons.
Great. That's I think that's a good answer to that. I think part of where that may have been leading towards is there's been some talk about a different transaction process where OEMs might lease the battery in the same way that the whole vehicle is leased, but with a sense that the batteries have a residual value in second life use. But I think that's kind of presuming a market that is not really developed yet. So
we do have a response to one of the previous questions. Oh, sorry, Kurt, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add just a little bit to that. Again, ditto to everything that was said there on that response. One thing I'll just say is that one of the things that Orange EV did up front, we do all the safety testing, we do all the onboard monitoring, all that kind of stuff. But we actually took an extra step to only have 125 volt max voltage in our high voltage system. So while that isn't a 12 volt system, the safety benefits of having 125 volt max is significant compared to a 350 or 400 volt system. So we recognize that we might be working with smaller operators who have, we've got companies who have just 10 employees running our trucks. And so we wanted to make sure that we didn't have to have them have all kinds of capabilities in order to be safe. So in case they decide to work on the trucks themselves one day and not call us. So we did that in addition. So I think the point here is the manufacturers are all thinking very much about the safety.
Thank you, Kurt. So David with ChargePoint makes a point that one of our previous questions that, say if you're working with ChargePoint, they have take-home vehicle charging solutions that track EV fueling usage and reimbursement for company vehicles, and fleets can also use their fuel cards. So that is one way. We do have another question I don't think that we covered is electric utility bucket trucks rarely leave the service territory, thus could easily be replaced with medium-duty EV trucks. But they worry about mass outage events. Not having power to fuel the trucks tasked with repairing the system is kind of a complicated scenario. Does anyone have suggestions?
Yeah, I think Alex's system addressed that somewhat.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah, I was touching base on this a little bit, but first of all, I agree. The electric bucket truck kind of application is a prime use case for electric mobility. The routes that those trucks have is very limited, probably under 100 miles a day. There's a lot of stationary usage. Ultimately, the hydraulics and everything that is on the back of the truck can be replaced with an electric motor as well. So we have that on the horizon for our trucks as well. It's a little bit further out in the future, requires some of the repackaging and some redesign of the frame rails, but it is a prime use case. So we're definitely looking into that and working on that. The question about the blackouts, that's true. And that is top of mind, especially given our recent wildfires on the West Coast. Quite honestly, if you have a complete power outage, charging your truck is probably your least concern, and your traditional diesel pumps would probably also not operate, but there are things to address those. That could be either generators, or that could be stationary storage in form of batteries. So there is options for that, and it's all a question of the specific use case. You might already have generators at your facility if you have a refrigerated warehouse, for example. But like I said, if you have a complete power outage, you probably have different priorities.
Well said.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. So this is a conversation that we are going to be continuing into next week. Our speakers alluded to it today, that there are a lot of things that you need to think about before you start your implementation of adding electric vehicles to your fleet. And we're going to start going over the basics. And telematics, like Kurt mentioned, is a huge part of it. So please make sure you register for our webinar next week. It is part 2 in this series. We have a link there. You can go to our website and select events, and you can always find our upcoming webinars there. And so next up, also, we did cover a lot of the multi-port megawatt system requirements for supporting fleets like Alexander's and Keith's. And their projects were somewhat featured along the lines in these two. We have recordings of these past webinars. They're a little bit more intensive and a little bit more into the weeds and the details, and require a little bit more experience and understanding of electrical systems and heavy duty requirements. But we do recommend these webinars to you, and they will be on our YouTube channel. You can Google or just look up LCF TV on YouTube, or go to our website, or follow the links here. Again, thank you to our Clean Cities partners. Do any of our panelists or Michael have any parting words? No?
I just wanted to say thank you for inviting us here, and hope that the information's been helpful. And like I say, there's a wealth of more information out there. You've got 3 really good reference people to that you can rely on to get specific information here. And as I said, I'm always willing to talk with anyone.
And if anybody needs contact information for any of our presenters, they can email me and I will connect you. We will have a recording of this made available at a later date. And this concludes our webinar. Thank you so much for attending.